Hey, for any of those who've been following my Facebook page at all, you might have seen where I've been posting about the Federal Reserve, and you might be asking yourself, uh, what's the big deal about the Federal Reserve? Why are you making such a big deal? Is that not how we do business in America? Is that not the central bank? Is that not the one that our government runs? Well, the short answer is no. The Federal Reserve is not owned by the government. It has no government affiliation. It is a private bank that prints money. And for every dollar that it prints, there is some debt associated with that. And it doesn't take too much math to figure out that for every dollar that has debt on it and it's printed, you can never pay back that debt. So, that's the first thing. The second thing, I'm going to tell you about a piece of my childhood and how I learned back then something that kids can easily understand, but something our Congress somehow can't comprehend. And it's like this. Whenever I was younger, me and my friends would get together when we would have like little snacks and things, and being the free, enterprising people that we were, we wanted to have, we wanted to play around and, kind of act like grown-ups. So what we would have is have little things that were little trinkets and, maybe candy or something that we had picked up along the way. Well, um, our friend, I'll call him Joe, he doles out the amount of money that he's printed. Okay? Now, that by himself, he has X amount of money that can be doled out to whoever. And let's just say it was me, my sister, and one other friend. So, we use that money as currency to buy in exchange for things that we wanted that we sold to each other. And, but it came to a point where, of course, kids start thinking, well, what if I start making my own money? Well, under the system, if we did that, that would be called laundering money, replication of money, which is illegal. And that, of course, was put to a stop because the older ones in our group had quickly realized that you flood the currency with a whole bunch of currency, then you've diluted the monetary system. It's not worth as much. And it makes no sense to run it that way. So, but there came to a point where the issuer, Joe in this case, had decided that he was going to print even more money because there wasn't enough for all of us and the things that we want to purchase from each other. Now that is the central bank. That is the Federal Reserve, printing more money. Whenever he did it, it was okay. Because why? There was no difference. And we got upset about it too. The consumers in this scenario. We didn't like that any more than he liked us printing money. Because at its rudimentary core, the concept hasn't changed. Whether I'm doing it, it's money laundering. When the government does it, in this case Joe, well, that's not a good example because Joe would have been the Federal Reserve in this case. Whenever they produce more, then that's not laundering. But it still accomplishes the same thing. So we understood at that point that none of us could make any more money. We as the consumers couldn't print more money. And Joe learned that he couldn't do that either. And what we wound up doing was going to the store and buying play money. And if we wanted to use that, then we could. Because, of course, most of us didn't have that much money. So the ability to dilute the system, the currency, had been brought down drastically. And we learned that as money flooded in, what Joe was forced to do, which in this scenario you kind of can consider Joe as both the corporate, the government, and the Federal Reserve. We just discovered something. All of them are in cahoots together, aren't they? Because they all have the same thing in common. They have the same desires. They have the same wants and needs from each other. And so, in this case, Joe is being both, all three of those. Because that's essentially what we have right now in America. Government is ran by the corporate system, in which, of course, the corporate system is being ran by the Federal Reserve. So, what we learned back then is very relevant to today. And it's something that we learned as kids. Because whenever we diluted this system, he had to make things more expensive. All of us did. Whenever he diluted the system, things got more expensive too. So you see how inflation works. We had to eventually scrap the whole idea altogether at one point. And because it was out of control. So think about that example and how things are going right now with the Federal Reserve. It's issuing money. It's actually going a step further than we did, and for every dollar that was made, tacking on debt towards it. So the government is completely in its debt at all times. It has complete control over it. And it becomes a little bit easier to understand like that. And that's something I learned as a kid, doing what kids do, imitating life. It didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. And that's why I'm against the Federal Reserve. And that's why I am for ending the Fed. I want them to go in there and audit their books, and I want them to be brought down. They are not a federal institution. They are not part of the government. They are private bankers in charge of your government. Now you tell me what's scary. Do you trust many bankers? I don't. So, that's all I've really got to say on the matter. So feel free to discuss.